Whether you call them triples, trays, or three-pointers, they're the most valuable shot in the game of basketball. Worth 3 times as many as one of these, and 50% more than one of these buckets can get the crowd on their feet in a way that a 19-foot jumper just can't. String a few together, and leads can evaporate in just a few seconds. They're more elusive and unpredictable than their scoring counterparts, but, not unlike a drug, they're addicting. The more you start to make, the more dependent you become. As they say, you live or die by the 3. The title of this video says it's a love story. And it is. It's the story of how players, coaches, and teams of the National Basketball Association fell in love with the three-point shot. This love story starts with us. We love when you hit the like button and subscribe, and we know that almost all of our viewers aren't doing that. What the heck is that about? "1976 was a big year. Jimmy Carter was elected President of the United States, both Apple and Microsoft were incorporated, and people wore stuff like this. But there was another event that would reshape the sports world. The National Basketball Association and the American Basketball Association followed in the footsteps of the NFL and merged to create the NBA as we know it today. The ABA had some differences from the NBA. Primarily, they had a three-point line and used this ball. The NBA wasn't as progressive. When the merger happened, the NBA didn't adopt the ABA's three-point line. They just liked layups a lot, and they thought you can't go wrong with sticking with tradition. After all, it's worked for baseball. In 1979, 3 years after that original merger, the NBA said screw tradition and came up with a brand new idea that was going to revolutionize the game. They called it the three-point line. This was implemented just in time for the likes of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, who had just entered the league. With some of the greatest players to ever play the game now entering the league and the ability to score more points per shot, you might guess that the three-point shot took off. Except, it didn't. The game of basketball had been so heavily big man focused that even the purest shooters weren't really prepared to take a few steps back. Or at the very least, they weren't given the license to shoot them at a high volume. It took 9 seasons for Larry Bird to hit 400 threes. Steph Curry hit 402 in a single season. But everything changed when the best player the league had ever seen came out of North Carolina and joined the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan had an array of tools in his arsenal. The mid-range jumper, the floater, the acrobatic body control for his incredible finishes. He had every shot in his bag, just apparently not the three-point shot. In his first 4 seasons, he failed to even hit 20% of his attempts from long range. It turns out Michael Jordan, like everyone else, hadn't practiced three-pointers in college or high school, even though he was drafted 5 years after the league had added the three-point line. This makes sense since colleges didn't adopt the three-point line until 1986, 2 years after Jordan was drafted, with high schools adding the line the following year. This meant that every NBA rookie was sort of starting from scratch in development of this new shot. Still, these were some of the best athletes in the world, so it only took a few seasons before they were more respectable from the line. The same year the NCAA added the line in 1986, the average NBA team was shooting better than 30% from deep for the first time. Attempts were slowly rising throughout the late 80s and early 90s as efficiency was increasing. What the NBA hadn't foreseen was the slowing of pace of play and the overall decrease in scoring. The league also needed a way to discourage teams like the New York Knicks from its interior play because it didn't want to turn into hockey. To make matters exponentially worse, the player who made the NBA into a global league had just retired, fresh off a three-peat from the Bulls. The NBA decided it needed to adapt or die. The three-point line might have had a role to play in the league-wide drop in scoring and pace, but the change had an overwhelmingly positive addition. Even with some of the unexpected side effects, they just couldn't get rid of it. In 1993, the average team was attempting 10 threes per game and netting just 10 points per night, less than 10% of their total offense. Getting teams to shoot more threes would theoretically fix the scoring problem and provide more spacing, discouraging excessive interior physicality. To get the team to shoot more threes, the solution was simple: make the basket bigger. No, that can't be right. The solution was simple. They moved the three-point line back from 23 feet 9 inches at the top of the key to the same 22-foot distance that was in the corners. This made it the same distance from every angle on the floor. The results were predictable. Attempts shot up 55% in the next season, and the three-point field goal percentage hit an all-time high at a hair under 36%. It was happening exactly as the NBA had scripted, so the scoring and pace problems had to improve, right? Nope. In fact, they got even worse. Scoring and pace was the lowest it had been since the merger, but three-pointers were hardly to blame. Coaches prioritized taking care of the ball, and pushing the pace in transition certainly did not fit that criteria. Offensive schemes like Phil Jackson's triangle were slow. This is important because NBA teams pretty much just copy what works, and the Bulls had better results than anyone. They played a measured and methodical form of basketball that leaked into the rest of the league. In addition, NBA teams were taller than they had ever been, which also meant they were slower. After 3 seasons of a shortened line, some shooters looked like gods. Steve Kerr, who was already a fantastic shooter from before the line moved, became otherworldly. He averaged over 50% from deep during this period, and held the single-season record for three-point percentage for 15 seasons before Kyle Korver later edged him out. So, while three-point shooting had improved, teams were still taking their time to shoot the ball because pace of play was rooted much, much deeper than that. The shortened line did speed up adoption of long-range shooting, and in combination with other rules, it helped reduce the physicality of the game. It was ultimately a success in the eyes of the NBA, but when a dude that looks like he delivers newspapers to your grandma is breaking records, the league knew it was time for a change. In 1997, after moving the three-point line back to its original position, shooting took a hit, but it was still much more prominent than it was before the shortened line. Three-point efficiency continued its steady increase into the early 2000s. With pace and scoring still in the toilet, the NBA still wanted to push perimeter play and had not yet found a solution. From the years 2000 to 2004 came a few rule changes, including the removal of the hand check and the legalization of zone defense. For some reason, the hand check rule is like Breaking Bad, and as soon as fans learn about it, they have to tell everyone about it.
You will recommend Breaking Bad to everyone you know.
I will recommend Breaking Bad to everyone I know.
Breaking Bad is the best show you've ever seen, except maybe The Wire.
Most of the time, people make the argument that the hand check rule was the reason scoring is where it is today. But, as we learned before, rules don't change the philosophy of coaches as much as one might want to believe. Moving the three-point line did nothing for the pace of play and did nothing for points per game, because coaching philosophy prevailed. Phil Jackson teams played slow, so the rest of the league followed suit. In the same way, going into the 2004-2005 season, a perfect storm was brewing in Phoenix that would change the game more than any rule could. Mike D'Antoni was entering his first full season as the Suns head coach, and the team had just signed free agent Steve Nash from the Mavericks. Mike D'Antoni had an entirely new philosophy that he had tested in Italy, and Nash was the perfect player to facilitate it. D'Antoni loved threes. If the average NBA coach was here, D'Antoni was here. A 40% three-point shooter with a high basketball IQ, Steve Nash had just led the Mavericks to the best offense in the year prior. However, the Suns' offense was different, and it had just one simple goal: score in 7 seconds or less. Through a heavy emphasis on transition offense, three-point shooting, and pick and rolls, the Suns were revolutionary. Moving Amari Stoudemire from the 4 to the 5, they were the first iteration of small ball as we know it today. Not only did they take more threes than any other team in the league, they were the most efficient. They shot nearly 40% as a team and scored roughly 20% more from threes than any other team in the league. A team that had entered the preseason with the 25th worst odds to win a championship finished with the second best record in the league, a league MVP, and lost to the eventual champion Spurs in the Western Conference Finals. They outperformed their talent, and obviously something was working. D'Antoni embraced statistics and prioritized efficiency, and the rest of the league followed suit. This doesn't mean the hand check rule didn't matter, but it doesn't explain the rapid increase in pace. You know what does? The 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns, and a fundamental change in coaching. A year later, Ray Allen would go on to break the single season record for threes. D'Antoni's offense was meant to capitalize on the most efficient shots in basketball. The most efficient shots were easily determined using a stat called points per possession. Here's a look at the average points per possession from every region. After shots at the rim, corner threes come in a close second place, followed by threes above the break. When you look at this, you can see why the mid-range game is dying. It's the least efficient shot in basketball. Even the most efficient mid-range shooters in the league aren't as efficient from mid-range as an average player is from three. This has pushed the game towards more length, athleticism, and versatility. Players 1 through 5 are able to pull up from deep. With LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, the Miami Heat in 2012 and 13 were the first team to capture a championship using small ball. Nearly a decade after D'Antoni and the Suns were the first to go all in on the strategy. With the Heat showing proof of concept for small ball, the NBA was primed for a three-point revolution. And then a kid from Akron, Ohio took the league by storm. No, not him. He already did that. Wardell Stephen Curry. Arguably let's just say it. He's the best shooter in NBA history. The NBA was obviously already shooting threes at a very high rate throughout the beginning of Steph's career, and even up until his first MVP season. But after his 2015-16 season, where he broke the three-point record by over 100 threes, and Klay Thompson added nearly 300 of his own, and the Golden State Warriors shot 41.5% from deep, things were different. The Warriors broke the record for most wins, and the rest of the league decided, yeah, we're gonna follow suit. You notice a pattern here? Points from threes have doubled over the last 5 seasons. More growth than the previous 11 seasons combined. Pretty much all of the three-point records have been broken over the past few seasons. The most threes in a game? The Bucks earlier this year. Most threes and a half? Jazz last month. Speaking of the Jazz, they're on track to break the record for the most threes made per game in a single season. The current record was set by the Houston Rockets in 2018. Who were coached by none other than Mike D'Antoni. Don't forget about him. He's still a part of this. That Rockets team also happened to be scoring 20% more from the three-point line than any other team in the league, the exact same percentage the Suns had over a decade earlier. This D'Antoni guy, he has ideas. The increase in three-point shooting is all about maximizing efficiency, and it's definitely working. The Dallas Mavericks broke the offensive rating record for a single season last year, and as it currently stands, there are 5 teams that will break that record this season. The star-studded Brooklyn Nets sit at the top of the list. The NBA and most fans love offense, but it might not be long before the league considers moving the line back another foot.
We do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Curry, way downtown, bang!
Or 2.